Hello and welcome to an extra skip retrospective look at Child of Light. I'll be your host for this video review, and if you can do me the solid to like and subscribe to the channel, it will go a long way. Or don't bother, it's whatever. Before we begin, let's start with a TLDR version. This game is worth it, and if you've been sitting on the fence regarding it, then jump off and dive in. Otherwise, if you've never heard of it, give it a look at. It will please RPG lovers, and for those uninterested in turn-based combat, the game is different enough for you to actually get engaged. Now that's out of the way, let's dive into this indie meal. The game's story is simple, and with it mimicking fairy tales, this simplicity isn't surprising but fitting and welcome. So, don't expect this to be one of those stories that stay with you long after you stop engaging with the product. This is not that type of story. Without getting caught up in details, I can easily boil down the game to: you journey as the young girl Aurora to save the magical kingdom of Lemuria from the evil queen Umbra. Along your journey, you will encounter obstacles, people in need of help, and allies who will aid you on your adventure. As you can see, there's nothing special about the setup. It's the standard coming-of-age story where Aurora begins hesitant and uninterested in her new environment, only wanting to get back to her own world, but with time she learns the gravity of her position, growing into the role thrust upon her and becoming a capable heroine equipped to challenge Umbra. Beyond this, I won't say any more for those potentially interested in giving the game a go, except that, in its simplicity, the story is compelling enough to have you interested to see where the journey goes. The music helps with setting a tone for the game. Through it, not only do you feel like you're engaging with a children's fantasy story of witches, princesses, and magical things, but it also feels like you're engaging with a picture book due to the art style and complementary soundtrack. Were this game a book, I would see it sitting comfortably with the likes of Harry Potter, The Chronicles of Narnia, Percy Jackson, The Keys to the Kingdom, and Artemis Fowl, even though, I know, I just say the game functions like a picture book. Across the game, the music is melodic, gentle, and effortlessly falls into the background as it accompanies you without ever really forcing itself onto the foreground. Whether that's the battle theme, the main menu theme, or Aurora's theme, composer Cœur de Pirate, otherwise known as Beatrice Martin, did an amazing job bringing the game to life. For me, the music is either the best part or second best part of the game. As an RPG, the central gameplay is the battle system, and I'm glad to say that for the most part, Child of Light gets this right. Combat is quick, layered, and actually incorporates more tactics than you initially think on the first engagement. Although I began to fall into routine with my battle style, it did take a while for me to find a rhythm to fights, and I think being unsettled and having to come up with different tactics upon new biomes is a good thing to keep things from getting stale. With that said, complementing the combat was the game's crafting system, where you obtain battle perks by combining colored gemstones or oculi that you find across the world or that you obtain as item drops from battles. Figuring out how far you could take the crafting was its own fun, as you also try and provide your characters with certain buffs and perks for battle. With this, to ensure combat stays fresh, was also a skill tree where each character had their own unique abilities to learn and stats to improve as they gained ability points from leveling up. Both passive and active skills were available to learn. The art style is magnificent, and Lemuria is a joy to travel through. Entering each new domain or biome was interesting, as each territory provided new secrets to unfold, different enemies to engage with, and hidden boss battles to triumph over. The world is a joy to explore, as it barely gets tedious going from one end of a world map to the opposite end, and I contribute this all to the flying. In all of this, I felt that giving players the ability to fly was a stroke of brilliance, as it never felt tedious as a form of movement. With vertical movement coming in as an option, exploration was also given another layer, as you have to let your inquisitive side guide you into checking every nook and cranny while making the most of Igniculus's lighting ability to figure out puzzles and find hidden goodies amidst stumbling upon baddies to defeat along the way. Now, to talk about the negatives. As fun as the game was, I have a couple of gripes. Unfortunately, it's not all perfection. Firstly, the game isn't challenging enough. From start to finish, I played on the hardest difficulty, yet I never experienced a game over. I never fled from a single battle. I never avoided enemies but challenged all of them when on the screen. And worst of all, I never felt compelled to use my items, where I stockpiled everything I found along my journey. There was never a need to use them, and in the end I only did so because I sensed that the end of a game was nearing and it would have been a waste to not use them and experience them. Secondly, 2 party members for combat is awkward. There's a reason 3 is the golden default. Anything less is annoying to manage, and anything more is overpowered. Granted, being able to switch out characters helps immensely. Even being able to switch in or out knocks out party members. But the minute an ally gets downed, you really feel it as you become ultra defensive, and you either have to revive the fallen member or swat them out and forget about them. Thirdly, the buffs and debuffs weren't that important. Debuffing enemies had its place to some extent, but buffing myself with spells or potions was never really a focus. The only thing I ever really used was casting haste for me and slow against my opponent. Outside of those, I would once in a while try out different potional spells just to see how they impact battles, but at the end of the day I found them not to be as useful or as important to the flow of battles. Fourthly, the crafting system isn't overly compelling. It's intriguing, yes, but it takes too long to acquire the highest level oculi, and you're not given enough of a gemstones along the game for a natural progression, where I was lacking stones to make combinations, even though I never fled from a single battle. At a certain point I stopped caring because some of the buffs offered weren't compelling enough to make me want the gem. Fifthly, I'm on the fence about the only voice work being the narrator. On the one hand, I don't mind because it adds to the fairy tale feel of having someone read out the story, and it also lowers development costs and the size of a game. But on the other side, it's also a missed opportunity in terms of immersion for players, especially getting to hear how these characters would have sounded like with the ballad rhyme scheme that was incorporated. Overall, I had a great time with this game, and despite my gripes, I would still recommend it to others to give it a try. Child of Light is a well thought out game that will delight you in the small details it has littered across the game, like how you can control Igniculus at any point with a right stick to collect items, but if you leave it alone, he won't interfere with your play, or how you can stay on track with how many treasure chests you found by looking at your world map. Either way, it's a joy. People should check it out. And my final verdict is,